Okay. I'm still scared. I need to shuffle over a bit. I'm just staring at myself. Hello, my name is Becca and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing the mid-year book freakout tag, which is a little bit late because it's halfway through July. But I figured I have to start on YouTube somewhere and this is where I'm starting. So I am new to BookTube, and by new I mean this is my first ever video, so if you will all be nice to me, I would appreciate that a lot. So let's just get into the tag. Oh, and I forgot to mention that the tag was originally created by Reads Like Wildfire, I believe. I will tag her down below. Question number 1. What is the best book that you have read in 2017? So for this one, I'm going to go for The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle by, is it Haruki Murakami. This is the first Murakami book that I've read, but I definitely want to read more of them now. It's about a man called Toru Okada, and Grace is in the background, and his cat goes missing. It's sort of a turning point in his life, and things go stranger and stranger and stranger from then on. And it's about the veil between reality and parallel universes. It's a very strange book, and when you get to the end you will wonder what you just read and you won't know how much was real, whether he's having, I got the impression that he could be having delusions, or maybe he did travel to other parallel universes. I think it's a book that you're supposed to think about and wonder what's going on, and I did enjoy that element of it. And considering it was translated from Japanese, I expected it to be really, really difficult to read, but it was super easy and I read it pretty quickly. Number 2, what is the best sequel you've read so far in 2017? So for this one, I've gone for The Fate of the Tearling, which is by Erica Johansson. This is the 3rd book in the Tearling series, and it was pretty good. People say that they don't like the ending in this, but the way that I saw it is, it was the only ending that there could have been. Like, I understand why people are dissatisfied by it, and I understand why it frustrates some people. It's not the ending that you would want, but it's the only happy ending that there could have been. The first book in this series is, you know, I actually can't remember because I know too much about this series now, but it is about a woman, and she is in hiding because she's the queen's daughter, and the queen gets murdered and she becomes the new queen. She's been raised by, I'm going to say adoptive parents. They were her mother's teachers, I think. And it's all about her coming to grips with being a queen and fighting the other queen of another realm who's constantly threatening attack and takes some of her people as slaves. But it gets more complex from there. There's like excellent twists, and when everything comes together it is really amazing. This is the last book and it's the best sequel I've read so far this year. Question number 3 is a new release that you haven't read but want to read that came out earlier in the year. I've been really slow with reading this year. What happens is when a new book comes out in a series, I like to reread the other books so that I can have like the full experience. I've read 31 books this year, so I haven't been reading too slowly, but for some reason it's taken me forever to get to my rereads. I have 2 for this. The first one is King's Cage, which came out in February, and this is the 3rd book in the Red Queen saga. It's not a trilogy anymore, it is a saga. I'm currently rereading Glass Sword, which is the 2nd book, so I will be getting to this this month, and I'm super excited because the 2nd book in the series I didn't love too much. I much preferred the first one. The 2nd book had too much, I'm going to say politics, but I'm not sure whether that's exactly what I mean. But there is an excellent ending to that book, and I'm excited to see what happens in this one because I literally have no idea. I haven't even read the blurb because I want to be surprised. And the other book is dun, 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 A Coat of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J Maas, and there's my little happy hello bookmark. Yeah, I really need to read this. This is my favourite series, the A Coat of Thorns and Roses series. I know a lot of people really hated the first book, but I loved it. Like, it became my favourite book ever. Say what you will about my reading taste with that. With the way A Court of Mist and Fury left off, I'm super excited to read this. Just haven't got to it yet because this one came out in May and King's Cage came out in February, and I have to read them in order. Like, I can't just jump ahead as much as I would love to. but when I have finished Glass Sword and King's Cage, I will be rereading this series, so I should get to it soon. Question 4. Your most anticipated reads or releases for the second half of the year. I also have 2 for this one. The reason I actually started watching BookTube mainly, it was at the beginning of the year, and it was because I found that there weren't that many good series coming out this year, and there weren't that many books that I was really interested in. So I went onto BookTube to try and find some information, try and see what other people were reading, what I should be reading. So I don't really have anything that I'm highly anticipating. Like, I'm really excited for God's Grave, but I haven't read Nevernight yet. I just think that I'll like it. So my 2 answers for these, which like I will read them at some point, but I'm not like super excited to get my hands on them, is I think it's called Is It Tower of Dawn, which is the next Throne of Glass book by Sarah J Maas, and also Renegades, which is by Marissa Meyer. I absolutely love the Lunar Chronicles. I read Heartless earlier this year. I didn't like it as much as the Lunar Chronicles, but it was still really good. So anything by Marissa Meyer, I'm waiting to read. Number 5 is your biggest disappointment of the reading year so far. For this one, it's kind of controversial because the people that I know that have read it really, really love it. And my answer for this is Every Heart a Doorway by Shannon Maguire. I heard nothing but good things about this, and I was really interested in the concept of a portal fantasy, but the repercussions and the consequences of living in a portal fantasy world and then sort of being torn out of it. But I think the reason I didn't like this book was because I listened to it in audiobook while I was at work. The audiobook isn't great. Like, it made me want to give up on audiobooks, but I have read an excellent one since then, so I'm not going to give up on them altogether. But I am thinking that I will read Every Heart a Doorway again, but in a hard copy, because the sequel is out, and I think I would enjoy it more if I read the physical copy. Question number 6 is your biggest surprise of the year so far. This, I'm going to go with The Hate U Give. I went into this, I'd heard a lot of people saying it was amazing and that it was an important read. I wasn't too interested in it because I don't really like contemporary. Like, I'm very much a fantasy reader, and this is the first On Voices book that I've ever read as far as I'm aware, but I tend to only read contemporaries when the hype is there and I want to know what everybody's talking about. I mean, I do have a few on my Kindle, which I kind of read through summer. Like, I do read contemporary in summer, but they're more of like a fast read, something that I can read quite quickly, and it's a bit of fluff and I enjoy it, but I don't love it. But The Hate U Give was absolutely amazing. I expected not to really like it and just to think, oh, that's okay. I understand why people are saying it's so important. It's just so powerful. Like, I don't have a lot of experience with black culture in the UK. Unless you live in a city, which I never have. I've always lived in a town and now I live in a village. You don't really become immersed in it. There was only 3 people of colour in my school year and I was one of them, and I'm only half caste. You don't see a lot of black culture, so it was an eye-opener for me into what these people go through. Like, you see it on the TV, you hear about police brutality, but you don't really have any real life experience of it. And I truly believe that it's one of those things that if you think you understand, unless you have some physical real life experience of it, you really don't, and you should completely read this book. I would also highly recommend the audiobook because it just gives so much more life to it. Like, there's a lot of black slang in there and things that if you would have read them you might not understand the context, or because you don't hear them all the time in everyday life, they might not have as much of an impact on you as if you do listen to the audiobook, and it is so good. For those of you that don't know, it's about the Black Lives Matter movement, and it is about a young girl called Star. One night she sees her friend shot dead by a police officer, and it is about the repercussions of that and how she goes to a private school or prep school, I'm not sure, and she can't tell, there's mainly white kids that go there, and she can't tell her white friends about it because she doesn't want to seem ghetto, and she wants to have she wants to be a different star around them, so she struggles with all this internally. But I will say that there isn't like a solid sense of community. It's so heartwarming to see how her family rallies around her and how much they all love each other. It is a really good book. It's sad and it's happy, and I would just definitely recommend it. Number 7 is your favourite new author. I'm going to go with Samantha Shannon from this. This is the 3rd book in the Bone season. I read all 3 books this year. The Bone season was going to be my favourite book of the year, but I was going to mention Samantha Shannon here, so I thought I would save that one, but the Bone Season was tied for my best book of the year. The Bone Season is about clairvoyance in London. They're all separated into different types of clairvoyancy. Some are stronger than others, some are weaker than others. They're in a sort of 1984 George Orwell situation where they have a government that says that clairvoyancy is wrong, and the government captures them essentially and kills them. It's about a young clairvoyant and her adventures. I say adventures, it can be quite dark at times. I've read 3 of Samantha Shannon's books so far and I love them all. So I'm definitely excited to carry on with this series, even though it's 7 books long and this was only released this year. This is also the collector's edition, which is the only way that you can get a matching set because they redesigned all the covers and re-released them. And it is signed, which is good, but this cost me £30 and it had to come from Australia. Luckily the first 2 books are cheaper. I do like spending money on books. Number 8, New Crush. I'm sorry about my abbreviations of the questions, but I had to write them down in a notebook because I'm using my camera on my phone to film, so I just sort of wrote like little notes so that I knew what I was doing, and I can't refer to my phone for the full questions. But I believe that full question is, what is your new fictional crush based on books you've read this year? For this I'm going to go for Arcturus Masarthim from the Bone Season again. I know a lot of people don't like him because of there's a whole like slave master sort of situation, but all I'm going to say about this is sometimes people do bad things for the right reasons, and out of all the books I've read I haven't really found a swim-worthy guy apart from Arcturus. I think I like the brooding thing in books, so yeah, Arcturus. Number 9 is your new favourite character, and I'm cheating slightly with this because this book I read for the first, well, this series I started in 2015, but this character is my best friend's favourite character from the series, but I didn't really care much for him until the reread, and that is Shade Barrow from the Red Queen trilogy. Saga, sorry. Yeah, I won't go too much into it because if you haven't started the series at all, there's spoilers, but I found a new appreciation for Shade and I like him a lot more on the reread than I did the first time that I read through the series. Book number 10 is a book that made you sad or a book that made you cry. I don't generally cry during books, but I did tear up a lot when reading or listening to The Hate You Give. I've listened to it at work, and within the first 3 chapters I think I was already tearing up, and there are a couple of emotional points through there. It's a very powerful book and it can be very moving, especially if you listen to it. It seems more authentic if you listen to it, I feel. It was just very powerful and very emotional, and I think that it's based on a lot of real life cases, and like things like that do happen, makes it all the more real and all the more hard hitting. And I did tear up a few times. Number 11 is a book that made you laugh. Anything from the Infernal Devices. I read these for the first time this year, even though I read The Mortal Instruments, I think the year before City of Heavenly Fire came out, because I remember I did get City of Heavenly Fire on release. But anything that Will Herondale says, he's a bit like Jess Whalen. They're sarcastic. Yeah, just anything that Will says makes me laugh. Probably the funniest books I've read this year. I don't tend to read a lot of humour or things that are funny. I do prefer my fantasy, but Will Herondale started and finished this trilogy this year, so they can all count. Number 12, your favourite book to movie adaptation of 2017 so far. I actually haven't seen any. I'm so behind on all of my TV shows, so I can't even pick one of those. I don't think I've been to the cinema many times this year. I can't remember. So I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to go with the Beauty and the Beast what's it called? Remake. Going to go with the Beauty and the Beast remake. I think that's the only film I've been to see in the cinema this year, and Beauty and the Beast was my favourite Disney film growing up. I still love the original more, of course, but there is a little bit of added magic, and I do like some of the songs more from the new one, so I'm gonna go with that. Number 13 is your favourite video or book review that you have published / posted this year. I'm gonna have to go with this one. It's the only video that I have made so far. I don't really write book reviews apart from on Goodreads, and they tend to be quite brief because I struggle to recollect my thoughts straight after I've read a book, and then within a week I've forgotten most of what happened. It's gonna have to be this video right here, no matter how awful it turns out. Number 14, the most beautiful book you have purchased or received this year. This I'm going to have to go for Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I believe that this is different from the US edition because I've seen a lot of the US edition recently, but I don't think it's got the gold on it. Like, it's super pretty. I love gold foil. That's my most beautiful book. I haven't read this yet. Hopefully I will soon. And the last question is, what books do you need to read before the end of the year? There's a lot of stuff. I have a lot of stuff that I haven't read yet that I would like to read this year, but I probably won't. There's a couple that I definitely will, King's Cage being one of them, and A Court of Wings and Ruin. I am also, where is it? Going to be reading Hush Hush because I haven't read these before, and me and my friend do a thing where every other month we recommend a book for the other to read. So I recommended him The Sin Eater's Daughter for last month, and he recommended Hush Hush, and I'm behind, so I should have read this in May, but I will be reading it this month. Aside from that, there are a few that I need to read. Things that I'd really like to get to this year. I'd like to read the third book in the Shades of Magic trilogy by V. Schwab, which is A Conjuring of Light. I would need to reread the first two because I don't remember a lot. I just remember there's different Londons. We've got Nevernight, which I bought 2 days ago. Don't know much about it apart from I believe it's an assassin in an assassin school. I don't know where she goes from there. That's all I know. The UK cover's kind of pretty. All the Birds in the Sky, I saw this in Waterstones when it first came out in the US edition, but I picked this up at a charity shop for £2 and I've been looking for it for quite a while. I'm really excited to read this. This is about a witch who can communicate with animals, and I think there's a guy as well, a mad scientist who invented the 2-second time machine. So it's about them two and their encounters, I think. And then we have these two by Christina Henry, and we have Alice and Red Queen. These are quite dark horror adult retellings of Alice in Wonderland, and I really want to get to these this year. I read them, I didn't read them, I got them as a gift for Christmas, and I just saw the other day that Christina Henry has a new book out called Lost Boy, which is I think it's a Captain Hook origin story, which I'm really excited to read. I was going to buy it actually because it was on buy one get one half price, but I haven't read these yet and I'm not sure if I'll like them, but hopefully I will. So that is it for the mid-year book freak out tag and my first video. If you like it, like the video, subscribe to my channel, which doesn't have a name yet, but it will by the time this video is posted. Bye!